We're wild and have geese.
Showing the breeze with the wild geese.
And KiKi na art.
Hello, we're back, and we have the wonderful KiKi na art.
Kierna.
Kierna, if you're nasty.
How are you? Kierna, if you're nasty. If you're bold. Kierna, if you're my mammy.
Tala in the house.
Yeah.
How's
How
it
are
going?
Not
Thanks
too
for
bad.
coming in.
Yeah.
All good.
This is our little new chat. Our
I'm
favourite
actually wearing your
artist.
art.
Yeah, we're both
Check
wearing
this
KiKi.
out. Yeah, look, check it out.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah. Do you wear your own merch on?
All the time, yeah.
No,
Well, it's not really merch. It's my stuff, like, because I'm not advertising. You know, the merch is kind of advertising something. It's my jewellery that I make, so I wear it
Just
Right.
about
The
like
way
normal.
you're
Yeah.
doing
Just out and about.
I love your glasses, by the way. Someone that wears glasses. I mean,
I know.
Yeah.
I wear my glasses.
I was
Your
going to.
hair,
We were
everything,
talking about
so
that actually. That
colourful.
I was going to get advice on what to wear, what glasses to
Well,
buy. 'cause
anything other than Jeffrey Dahmer.
I know these are very
inspired.
Dahmery. I need to get now.
But they're from Kylie Minogue.
Yeah, Kylie, she did me dirty. She did me dirty.
I don't think she done dirty. I think they're lovely on you. I think
they're
part
nice.
they're part of your look.
Yeah, but I do like the colourful stuff. It's good.
Well, with these, no, because a friend of mine said to me years ago, glasses, you wear them on your face, so
yeah,
they
Accessory on the face.
well, not just because it's on your face and everybody sees your face all the time, so
Yeah.
it has to look good. So spend a bit of money on your the thing that everybody sees straight away.
Yeah.
And what a beautiful face it is.
Well, thank you.
So
Stop.
let's get into talking about you. Let's start from the beginning.
yes.
When did you first start calling yourself an artist? Or can you remember when you first were like, oh shit, I'm really
But
good at
actually, I want to go back a
drawing?
little bit more to say, when did you first create a piece of art or drawing, and where did you start a drawing, or as a child or whatever like that? You know.
Well, no, my dad's an artist.
Yeah.
So when I was an artist, he passed away. But when I was growing up, thanks a million. When I was growing up, I was always encouraged. I love drawing.
Yeah.
And so like when you're a teenager, sometimes you're like, oh, I don't want to do this. This is a pain. So I just basically was applying for colleges, and my dad says to me and my mum were like, just throw everything down on the list. You know, the CAO form.
Oh yeah.
Fill it all. Fill every single bit of it, because you won't get your first options or whatever. So I think I put somewhere on number fucking 9 on my diploma option was art college in Galway, and they called me up to have a look at my portfolio, and I didn't have one. And my aunt had just died, and my dad was like, oh, listen, stay off school and we'll go through it. So all my copybooks were ripped out the back of them, all the drawings of fashion and stuff I'd done.
Oh, brilliant.
And I put them into a portfolio, and then went down to Galway on my own. And I was lucky I got the textiles tutor, Seamus, and he saw all my drawings, because I used to love drawing Star Trek fashion and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And so he accepted me into textiles. I ended up studying paint, and years later he gave out to me about it in Grogan's, funny enough.
Oh no.
But so
where did
I
you
ended
go?
up in Galway then for 4 years in GMIT in the up on, I don't know whether you know,
I do.
Doonwara.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I ended
Oh,
up
yeah.
there for 4 years doing art, and then when I finished that, I went out to Vietnam for another 6 or 7 years, and then when I got back here, I was on the dole because it was the recession had just happened. So I was on the dole for a while, and then I just started messing about, making stuff in my bedroom, and then making jewelry. My sister, I loved all icons and stuff.
Yeah.
So I started making it with sellotape. Like drawing a picture and sticking a face of somebody I love down, and then so eventually I figured it out. So
Yeah.
and then it got me through, obviously, being on the dole, and then I was able to get back to, what's it called?
Back to work
Back to
scheme,
enterprise scheme,
That one.
like that.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
that's a
And
good
then
one.
after that, I was able to then go on and
become
make a
your-
few bob.
Be an artist.
Well, be an
Yeah.
artist and be an entrepreneur, really. It's great. And so
Yeah.
it's so, because how meaningful is it to you to be your own boss, kind of thing? Have your own time.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think I can work. Well, I can work for people, but every job I've ever worked for, I've threatened to walk out of.
Yeah.
And they've all asked me to come back, so that's a good one.
Oh, that is yeah.
But no, I think I'm a little bit kind of strong in my own mind sometimes.
Yeah.
And the older I get, the more I'm like that. So I kind of, as much as I'm kind of easygoing and soft in my own way, when it comes to what I want, I can be very Capricorn.
Yeah.
So now working for myself is so important, and I'm at a place now where I'm at a kind of transitional place with what I'm doing. So I'm loving doing the jewellery, but I've been doing it for 8 years, 8 years. So it's like that 7 year itch kind of place where I'm ready to expand and do other stuff. And I think there's loads happening in Dublin. You know, even like the likes of yourselves and what yous are doing, and
Yeah.
you know, there's so much to explore. There's so much to do. So I'm kind of like obviously always gonna do art, but it's where I go with that. Like last year I done, you know, stage pieces.
We saw the one you made for Lady Good. Hopefully put a picture here somewhere. But the one with the Sheila and a gig. We should ask her to borrow that for Bridget's Flaming. Actually,
yeah, we should.
Yeah, that is a good one.
That is incredible.
Actually, we could put that up in the Fumbly that night. Actually, people can put their.
I can't wait for that. By the way,
yes, that'd be great night.
I feel like that's my marker for winter's over.
Yeah,
I think Bridget's Day has changed things, because I always hated up until St. Patrick's Day. I was always like, that period, it's just misery. Yeah. And then this year it's like, oh, so we have this new big celebration in the middle of it all, and that's great because it's the start of spring. So I'm really looking forward to the
I think
show.
It feels like it's going to be. Yeah, finally a celebration of women in art, women in film, women in, you know, theatre. Lots of just finally, it's Manana here and rise up Manana.
All right, and would you say like feminism and like, because a lot of your icons in your jewelry tend to be women or female?
Oh yeah, like I grew up with really, like in the 80s, my parents were the weirdos who were like didn't have religion. You know, I used to be like, why can't I be religious? I don't want to go to hell, Mom and Dad.
Really?
Yeah. So I had those.
You're going anyway, sir.
Yeah, well, I says, well, I might as well. So, but up in Jobstown and Tala, you know, so it's a real working class area, very all new families, new estate. And I went to an Irish school up there. They had a tiny little prefab Irish school. And so my parents were really different, and my mum was a feminist. I remember my mum bought a book for us when we were kids called Fairy Tales for Feminists. Aww. And one of the poems in it was about Cinderella, and it was like, one day my prince will come and carry me away, but my social life's so hectic, I hope I'm in that day. And that was like me reading that in a little, you know, kids book when I was called Fairy Tales for Feminists when I was about 10.
Nice. Yeah.
So yeah, I've always had parents who thought outside the box, and now all of my friends are all like, oh, I feel like my parents were born a generation ahead of themselves. So a lot of my friends, the ideals that they would have in parenting and how they go about things would be very similar, and the mentality they'd have and their social care would be very similar to my parents back in the 80s, but they were on their own, even in their family and all. They were very much
to be like to be non-religious definitely is in the 80s, you know.
I know. And then I went to marry the Catholic Vietnamese man, and I was like, you managed to marry the only non-Catholic Irish woman. His mom was like, what, you're marrying a foreigner and she's not Catholic? And she's Irish and not Catholic? So,
but it sounds like you had really supportive parents, and actually we were speaking to Tig, Sexy Tig was in here as well, and we think it's quite important to an artist, because sometimes in Ireland it's out of fear or love that parents can be like not as supportive of a, you know,
well, I always think that I was
road
option. I think I was privileged, not monetarily privileged because I grew up in working class Dublin in Jobstown, and that was very hard. I know it really was. You did hear lots of crap outside, fights on the streets and drugs, and my parents were on the Residents Association, and there was so much happening in that area, so much trouble. It was a difficult place to grow up in. But so money-wise, I wasn't privileged, but definitely emotionally supportive. And I think, like, I remember when I was a kid, my mum and dad were like, you know, whatever you want to do when you're older, just like do it 100%, you know. And that's what we believe, you have to give it 100%. And I was like a little cheeky shy, and I was like, well, what if I wanted to be a prostitute? And my mum was like, well, give it 100%, kid. Yeah, you know what I mean. So they were very but they were very strict as well. So I did I did have very supportive, but also very, very strict parents. And I think it's just what parents are doing now. It's really basic, and it's not that hard. Just say to your kids, look, we love you, you can do it, we support you, and we'll do our best to allow you to do the things that you want. It's just really, it's love. And I don't like saying the word unconditional because, you know, but love should be unconditional. There should be rules and regulations, but accepting kids, because kids are, you know, I work with kids for 16 years, and I work for Christina Noble out in Vietnam. which is a big children's charity. I don't know if you've read her book, but it's
No.
pretty amazing.
I've read about her though. You know, I haven't read the book. I might have read the book. Yeah, she's.
Do read the book, and there's a film about her as
Deirdre
well.
Kane,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
our old pal.
So, yeah. So
We'll
there's
have her in one day interview.
you do.
Yeah,
Deirdre's
she's
the
great,
best.
yeah.
But yeah, so working for Christina and working with the kids and all, you see a lot. You know what I mean? And like a lot of the kids, there's nature versus nurture. So you're looking at, 30 kids in cots, all kind of being raised the same, with the nurses and stuff. And then you've got like their nature and their nurture and how they're nurtured and how like the nature of some kids, like some kids can be harder to, not to love, but to connect with because they're maybe a little bit whinier or a little bit more. And that's just the personality, so it's kind of like, I think when you're with kids, you kind of have to take them on an individual level. So when I imagine, parenting, well, I'd say I know a bit, even though I'm not a parent, I would know a fair amount, but just kind of supporting and loving them for whoever they are. And sometimes kids might not work out the way you wanted them to, or they might have something different. But if you just keep at that, keep like loving and supporting and keep trying to, eventually you're going to break them down to, they're like, there's no point, this is, because it's kind of like fighting a wave all the time, you know what I mean? Sometimes you have to.
Yeah, no, that's lovely insight. I really like that. I just wanted to ask you as well. I know that you said your father passed away. How long ago was that?
It was 3 years ago, and I have to say the last 3 years have been. I'm only coming out with something. That's why even with KiKi, I'm starting to transition. Yeah. And he wasn't just a dad. I know this sounds real tacky, but he was kind of my best mate as well. Like even last night, I was looking at some drawings I done. And I was like, geez, I'd love to, because when you put something on the internet, it loses something. And so I have these beautiful drawings, and when I put them up, I just feel like it's almost like, not cheapening them, but it's like they don't look as good. And so you want to show somebody physically, the physicality of because I don't use digital work as much anymore. I hand draw, and I love the craft of that. So and the artistry of that. So I had the physical pieces, and I was like, the one person in this world that I would love to show these to and go hear feedback and all that kind of stuff was my dad. So I mean, the good thing is, I think we're starting to talk about grief a little bit more than we used to.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think a lot of the hurt that people carry into this world and they act out on that hurt comes from a lack of acknowledgement. So you lose somebody and you're supposed to be in work a month later.
Yeah.
How are you supposed to, unless it's deeply tragic and then you're given a bit more time, but even if it's a simple loss of somebody dying, and you're as prepared as you can be, like, I mean, that person was a massive part of your life, and then all of a sudden you're supposed to just be like, whilst inside your whole, it reshapes you, and it changes who you are. So for me, the last 3 years have been kind of difficult, and it's only, I think, year 3 that you start kind of. There's something about 3, isn't there?
It's coming out of the shock of the initial.
Yeah.
Because you are still shocked and adjusting and stuff, and then you have to start accepting, and that's kind of hard.
Really real. Like the more time goes on, actually, the more you're kind of like, oh, this is actually very real, and the more kind of hurt. Yeah, because you can almost seek comfort in the grief, because you have an excuse for your behavior or why you're feeling the way you're feeling. Connected to that love that you felt, because it's now pain.
Yeah.
So the pain equals to the love or whatever.
Exactly.
But would you say it affected you as an artist, or affected your
massively? Yeah,
art?
Absolutely. Well, I think the thing is that like that privilege thing I had, where I was always kind of supported. I think sometimes the higher the horse, the harder the fall, because I wasn't expecting such adversity or to feel such feelings. However, I wouldn't change it, and I wouldn't bring them back, even though that's really hard to say, because the stuff I've learned is too valuable, and the stuff I've been able to help other people with on their journey. I have one friend who has terminal cancer at the minute, and so even just having the understanding that I have to be able to help that friend in that place is, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, it's like crap happens in life and really hard things happen, but in the middle of those really hard things are really beautiful and bright moments. And so like, even with my friend who's sick, we're having such great times, and they're so valuable, because actually all we have is now. And then when someone's gone, or when things have changed, they've changed. And so it's like a friend of mine, I done a little illustration. It was like when life gets hard, change perspective.
Yes, I saw that, the upside
Yeah,
down
and
TVs,
and
yeah.
for me, it was a simple conversation that we were having, but I was like, how do you change perspective? And it's like, well, you do.
You just have to.
So
You
when
have
you're
to try
being
anyway.
when you're being hard on yourself about something, or you're feeling really down, just go, is there another way I can take this on? So like, even with grief or death or whatever, that's really sad. There's nothing you can do about it, but you can change your perspective, so you can look at, how would you go about like looking at the overall state of life, or what is death? Like, maybe it's so great that we'd all want to be there if we knew about it. I think it's the ones that are left behind that kind of have to.
Yeah, it's just hard being
Yeah,
human.
yeah, it
We're
is.
having a great time.
I think a whole podcast needs to be done on grief as well, because I
Yeah.
think it's something that, well, I'm sure there's loads out there.
Well,
but
we actually have one before this. We have good grief episodes of our
Oh,
podcast
very
as
good.
well.
Well,
Yeah,
oh,
I'll send
brilliant.
it to you.
Yeah,
Oh,
during
do.
lockdown we
Yeah,
were,
during
when
lockdown.
we're just on our own.
I'm
and
saving
perform.
yours. When you have
Oh,
something
yeah.
and you don't want to binge.
Oh yeah. I'll send you the older ones, the good grief ones, if
Yeah.
anybody wants to take a listen
Good
to
grief,
them.
I will.
Yeah,
But
you
that
might
was
find
our-
something from them.
Because
like-
we found that as well. We actually have something to, I lost my brother really young, and I think that was my only, it was like a little bit like your dad, like that. We had a really close. He was really someone I looked up to a lot,
Yeah.
and being the oldest in the family, it was just gone. It was wiped out. It was very weird, It's just suddenly you're just gone in a completely different direction, and to adjust to that, and then but it's still
it
my
comes
father.
with great silver linings, though.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
fucked up silver linings.
one
it
thing-
gives you a better perspective.
Here's a
on it.
really
Perspective on
weird
life.
silver lining. Like,
Yeah.
my dad lost his brother to suicide at 24,
Oh.
and Thomas, and so even my language, I wouldn't use commit suicide. I'd use die by suicide.
Yeah.
And so I grew up. My mum was pregnant with me when he died, and so my whole life I grew up knowing about suicide and knowing about depression.
Yeah.
And in some way, I've been around a lot of people who have had depression or had, suicidal thoughts, or have tried, and I've been able to help and be there for them. And so maybe me growing up in that environment where I'm not afraid to talk about it, or I'm not afraid to engage or be there for somebody going through it, and I have an understanding, whereas other people run away.
It's
Even
hard.
though the loss of my uncle is great and horrible, somebody who was his sister-in-law who's pregnant at that time, that baby grew up to really take this on as something that is close to me, so it's made me be able to be there for other people. So there's ripple effects that you don't know about.
Yeah,
with
I'd
sadness
like
and
to
grief.
hope that
Yeah.
everyone's death has a beautiful effects on
Yeah.
the people that they leave behind. That's what I would hope. Anyway,
Well, it's true. I mean, I think that was our initial thought, like, as well. We want to be able to talk to people because we're able.
Yeah.
Somehow, and we can we use humor.
and through dark comedy, and humor as well.
Dark comedy is what gets you through
Dude,
it.
Yeah.
I love an old joke. Like when people
Yeah.
ask me about my sister, and I'm always like, "Well, luckily for me, she was the pretty one."
You're terrible. I'm glad, or I'm sorry, I meant to say really sorry to both of you, because
no worries.
I think with my dad being a little bit older, as much as I was super close to him and all that, I do think losing somebody at a young age, I'd say it reconnects the brain in a different way sometimes, because
different elements.
Yeah.
to it, I suppose.
But,
But death, I
yeah.
suppose grief is hard in any case, really.
But I think the perspective it does, I certainly am like, well, I'll do what I want with my life. My brother died by
Yes.
accident, so
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
was just
Yeah.
totally random, and it could be any of us
Could
tomorrow.
be any of us.
so
Yeah.
Let's be an
Do-
artist.
Just do what you want to
Well,
do.
that's true. Like,
No,
and
seriously, it
look
really
at the
helps.
three of us are talking about something really sad here, but at the same time, look at us. We're living our true selves. We are authentic.
truth.
We are authentic in what we're doing. We're not afraid. Money isn't everything. We realize that we have a different value system. And for me, it's like, I'm not rich in monetary, but I am so rich in life. And
rich.
I can see that in you. And I was talking to Duck, my husband, last night, and we were both just saying, I was just talking about you guys and talking about how there's such a beautiful community of people. And, we've suffered. And even if you look at women at the minute and what we've gone through, that there's a power in us now that
Oh, there's a fire indeed.
There's a fire.
There's nothing to lose.
There's a Bridget. Yeah, nothing to lose.
Sure, we've
Exactly.
been there.
We've been there, done that.
Yeah, I can't lose
It's
any
like
worse.
we in Growler will have for a guest who we were talking about that, the web that we're weaving of these the coven of absolutely brilliant women like yourself. And thanks very much, Robert. That was just lovely to chat. And
yeah,
that was quick.
Yeah, it is. The time flies. I tell you.
We have.
I would like just one very closing
closing
statement.
remark.
I would love for you to give any advice to any other artists that might be listening, like any bit of advice you could give to someone who wants to do what you're doing or who wants.
My advice that I give to my friends with kids, right? And this is what I give with art, and it's a funny one. Is if I had a kid and my kid said, "Oh, I want to be an artist," I'd be like, "Grand, train as a carpenter, or train as a plumber, or train as something that you can do that's physical." We're crying out for that work.
Yeah.
And I wish I could do that work. I wish I could fix my own plumbing in my house and not have to hire someone to come in for like 300 quid for 20 minutes work. But if I was getting 300 quid for 20 minutes work, I'd work as a plumber 2 days a week and the rest of the time I'd do the art. So I always say, like, art is not easy, and there's so many artists, and especially with the internet, there's so much out there. And that's amazing because we get to access more, which makes us better at our skill sets. And, you know, there's a lucky few who just go like that overnight and they're famous. But for me, it's kind of like, have a side hustle. You know, because it's important, and it means in this society we live in, everything's so expensive. Even if you are making loads of money off your art, but with art you could get a commission. Like this last year for me, it was like one big job and then feast or famine, and then I'd have to budget that to get me through. Whereas if I had a job that I could just tap into and go, do you know what, I'll build a cabinet for somebody, or I'll take on 2 days plumbing work just to have a few bob, and I can still work for myself and I can still pick my hours. I would say for anybody, and I know it's not romantic, like, because it's not.
I know.
And I love being an artist, and I wouldn't change anything about it at all. And I would recommend anybody do it. It's the most enriching thing in your life. But I like a bit of logic as well.
Yeah.
And I think you have to have a bit of both.
Capricorn again.
I
Become
know.
a plumber, become a carpenter.
And become a more Capricorn as a girl.
Or become a stripper.
Something, actually, but do it 100% as Mila said.
100%. Yeah. Do KiKi.
You heard it here now. Do it, whatever you do.
Whatever you do,
it.
100%. From me
Do it
ma.
with your heart.
Actually, that's somebody you should interview as me ma. She's got
Oh my God, definitely.
Oh, she's
100%.
the most legendary mother. I want to be adopted. But anyway, we'll hopefully chat to you again soon.
Thanks a million.
And thanks for
And I'll see you at the Bridget Day in the Fumbly. I'm so looking forward
on
to it.
Bridget. Okay. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh.